If you're from New York, especially from the towns like Brooklyn, the Bronx, Harlem, and Queens, you already know what I'm about to talk about. During 2016 and beyond, it was like the rappers that were coming out of New York at that time just had a different level of hunger. Nobody, and I mean nobody, sounded like each other, and drill wasn't even as popular as it would be in the early 2000s. Now, all this occurred while I was in middle school, entering high school and shit, so I got to experience listening to these songs when they first came out in real time. SoundCloud was the main source to look for when new songs drop, or just to be on the lookout for the leaked song version on YouTube or whatever. It was almost like every week or every other week, someone dropped a song that will take over the city. Nothing but hits were released during this time. This video, I'm going to be talking about and going over everything from rappers like A Boogie, Young M.A, Jay Critch, Chef G, Sleepy Hollow, Cardi B, and more. These rappers were actually hungry and dropping consistently at that time. They wanted to be at the top of the scene. New York, especially when it comes to music, is very competitive. So it was actually good seeing them actually drop bangers back then. Now, the reason I specifically chose 2017 to 2019 as selected years because I think that's when the best music was coming out at that time in my eyes. Before 2017, there were acts like Bobby Shmurda, but his run got cut short due to him being incarcerated. And of course, there's A$AP Rocky and A$AP Mob and A$AP Ferg. And he could be the last person to actually carry the torch of being a successful artist that broke into the mainstream. Even dating back even further into the years, a lot of artists either got locked up or died. So New York really wasn't setting trends like it usually did. Atlanta was popping up during this time with rappers like 21 Savage, Young Thug, Future, Lil Baby, and especially the Migos. Them niggas was just on fire. But without further ado, let's jump into the video and let's see how New York was hot during 2017 through 2019. Before New York could take the crown again, it had to survive being counted out. By the early 2010s, the conversation around hip-hop had shifted, and not in New York's favor. For the first time since the culture's birth, the city that created rap was no longer its loudest voice. Atlanta wasn't just hot, it was dominated. Trap music had just become the industry's engine. Like I said before, Atlanta was just on a different level at that time. They were just dropping hit after hit, especially since SoundCloud was taking off at that time as well. If you saw the number some of these songs had, you'd be surprised. Songs like Mask Off, Bank Account, Digits, Low Life, March Madness, and Bad and Bougie, bro, it was like niggas in Atlanta just had a superpower for making hit songs. Sorry for the glaze, but let's get back to talk about New York City. Now, New York for a long time didn't have much going on musically. Now that technology was advancing and things were going to a digital standpoint, people couldn't sell their mixtape or anything physical at that time, and the radio kept playing the 90s music. Now, that's when A$AP Rocky came along and shook up the industry. However, he wasn't looked at as a New York rapper, and that was due to his sound. When he first came out, niggas thought he was from Houston. He was labeled experimental, fashion first, or global before local. Nicki Minaj's dominance was often separated from the city entirely, framed more as pop superstardom than New York lineage. French Montana's success was credited to industry ties rather than the movement. However, New York was never known for copying each other. We never move in straight lines or try to duplicate one another. Everybody that is popping has some sort of originality to their style. You can tell because each borough has their own unique style and pride, from the Bronx to Brooklyn to Harlem to Queens, even from Staten Island, even though niggas only have Wu-Tang and that's it. So if you was alive during this time, you must have heard some of these songs that was coming out in parks, restaurants, or whatever. But before we head into the next chapter or the next part of this video, we gotta talk about A Boogie dropping Artist and Young M.A dropping Ooh, and they both shook up the city. Now, if you don't know much about Artist, it's pretty much A Boogie's first mixtape, not album, and it was turning up the streets. Young M.A dropped Ooh, and had everyone saying, "You call her Stephanie, I call her Heffany." But enough of the jokes. We're going to be moving on into 2017, and we're going to go even deeper to what was happening. By 2017, the A$AP Mob had already done something rare. They made New York rap cool again without trying to sound like the past. Like I said before, A$AP Rocky wasn't really considered a true New York artist due to his sound and style. Neither was A$AP Ferg, and the two had distinctive sounds. However, each of them had a massive impact in fashion and on pop culture, especially A$AP Rocky. He was mixing and matching designer, hot beats, and more expensive shit that neither me or you can afford. So now, speaking specifically about the Mob, in 2016, they released Cozy Tapes Volume 1, which was dedicated to one of the key members, A$AP Mob, who had passed away a year before. Then in 2017, they released their second album and last album, Cozy Tapes 2, Too Cozy. A$AP Ferg released Always Strive and Prosper, which is the acronym for A$AP, in 2016, and Still Striving in 2017. And Still Striving features one of his biggest songs ever, which is Plain Jane. And that song was everywhere. And just so you know, I'm going to be saying that a lot in this video. At the same time, New York's youth was moving differently. They weren't waiting for labels. They weren't looking for validation from radio. They weren't trying to sound industry ready. They were building cult-like followings online, in clubs, and at parties. SoundCloud, Instagram, YouTube. These weren't just platforms. They were ecosystems. Now, in 2017, Cardi B released one of her biggest songs ever, Bodak Yellow. For the first time in years, a New York artist dominated the charts without adjusting their identity for mass consumption. That sent the message through the city. Authenticity could win again. Also, A-Boogie released his debut album, The Bigger Artist. Yo, this album was phenomenal in my opinion. Songs like Say A, Beast Mode, Let's Start Over, and Drowning, these songs were just nothing but bangers. And not to mention, Drowning is a diamond song, so put some respect on A-Boogie's name. Also, coming out of Brooklyn, Sheff G was on the rise when he released No Suburban, which was aimed at 22 G's, and Panic featuring Sleepy Hollow, who will also blow up at the same time Sheff G would. Then finally, Young M.A was white hot when she dropped Ooh back in 2016, and then in 2017, she dropped an EP titled Her Story. And of course, Jay Critch dropped Speak Up, Ad-Libs, Fashion featuring Rich the Kid, and Thousand Ways. By the end of 2017, New York was on fire. If you was a teen or old enough to remember, you already know all the rappers I just named was dropping heat, and they will continue to keep dropping heat in the following years, like in 2018 and 2019. Alright, in this part of this video, we're gonna expand on Sheff G, Sleepy Hollow, and the early Brooklyn drill scene, where the seeds will be planted for the sound that will soon take over. I don't condone violence, but bro, I'm glad these niggas was going at it because the songs they was making was fire. They didn't care about being mainstream or having a charting single. These were some real grimy Brooklyn niggas rapping about what they lived and what they was going through at that time. You could just tell the music was gonna be fire whenever the cover was just a picture of them taken by the iPhone. The music was aggressive, the music videos were simple but sent the message, and the energy was infectious. For years, New York rap had been criticized for lacking urgency. Drill brought the urgency back. No filters, no polish, no apologies. Drill didn't spread because of labels, it spread because of youth culture. Teenagers and young adults carried the sound through social media, parties, and in the streets. Brooklyn drill reintroduced risks into New York rap. It reminded the culture that the city doesn't thrive when it's polished, it thrives when it's honest and rugged. And as the 2018 approached, the underground had done its job. The engine was running, all that remained was for the rest of the world to hear it. Moving forward into 2018, with the use of social media, this is when the rappers started turning it up a notch. The underground had done its job. Brooklyn Joe had reunited urgency, and new artists was building cult-like followings. This was the year New York stopped being debated and started being present everywhere. If one artist symbolized New York City's adaptation to the modern era, it was A-Boogie with the Hoodie. He dropped his sophomore album Hoodie Season in 2018, and that album was filled with great music like Swervin', Star Tender, Demon and Angel featuring Juice WRLD, Look Back at It, Billie Jean, Four-Man Convo, and OD. A-Boogie was on a different level in 2018, bro. Like, all those songs I just named were just on one album. It's just crazy. Also in 2018, he also dropped International Artists before Hoodie Season, but as the EP, so it wouldn't count as the album, and has some good songs on there too. In my opinion, nobody could fuck with A-Boogie at that time. Like, he was really at the top of his game in 2018. At the same time, Cardi B dropped her highly anticipated debut album, Invasion of Privacy, which has songs like Bodak Yellow and I Like It, and a whole bunch of other songs, carrying the album to going platinum 6 times and winning a Grammy for Album of the Year in 2018. Dave East represent another crucial lane in hip-hop, especially in New York. Traditional New York street rap updated for the modern era. Lyrical miracle, like for the old heads. Projects like P2, Karma 2, and Beloved all blended gritty street storytelling with cinematic production and features that gave his music weight. Dave East wasn't chasing hits, he was feeding the culture and the streets. He was reinforcing New York's lyrical backbone, reminding listeners that the city never lost its pen game. Now, and also in 2018, Nicki Minaj dropped Queen, an album that reaffirmed her place as one of New York's most technically gifted artists. And in Brooklyn, Sheff G and Sleepy Hollow was dropping songs like Panic 2 and Panic 3, while 22 G's will respond with Suburban, which exploded all over the city, especially in Brooklyn because they're from Brooklyn. And again, in the Bronx, Little TJ would make his presence known when he dropped Long Time and GOAT. So by the end of 2018, some rappers were cementing their reputation and some artists were just starting to heat up. And in 2019, they will make their names even more iconic. By the time 2019 came around, artists were making waves for themselves. The city had momentum, the music was moving, the streets, the clubs, and the internet was already aligned. All that was missing was a sound that could cut through anything and everything at once. And then Pop Smoke showed up. Pop Smoke came from left field. Nobody, and I mean nobody, sounded like him. He didn't have to build a following or drop a lot of songs to get noticed. Pop Smoke put the whole city on notice in just a matter of months or weeks even. Not just Brooklyn, but the whole city was trying to mimic his deep voice and copy the dance moves he was doing in his music videos. Songs like Welcome to the Party, Dior, and PTSD set his career apart from the rest. All those songs were getting played at cookouts, basketball tournaments, and more places. Pop Smoke's rise didn't stand alone. Because Pop Smoke was so successful, that put a lot of eyes on Brooklyn. His success amplified the entire Brooklyn Joe ecosystem. Chef G released his debut album, The Unlucky Lucy Kid, or The Unlucky Lucky Kid, I don't know. And Sleepy G will do the same, releasing his debut album, Don't Sleep. Both of these projects got bangers like Breaking Bad, Too Fake, and Bestie. And on Chef G's project, there's hits like Feel Away, Flows Part 2, We Getting Money, and All My Life. Amazing debut projects, especially with the hype and anticipation that was around it and building up. I'm glad Chef G and Sleepy Hollow didn't disappoint. Also, 22 G's released his debut project, The Blicky Tape, which features the infamous diss track Snap It Gang Freestyle. Now switching back to Pop Smoke, with the hype surrounding him, he ended up releasing his debut project, Meet the Woo. Back in the Bronx, Little TJ will drop his debut album, True to Myself, which features a lot of great songs like One Take, Hold On, Fuck Nigga or FN, Ruthless, Sex Sounds, Leaked, and Brothers. A lot of bangers on just one project. And too bad he felt the fuck off, cause I really enjoyed his music. And the squad went to a bunch of people were Little TJ fans. So songs like Leaked and Brothers and Resume was getting played a lot. Now, ASAP Ferg's Floor Seats captured another side of New York in 2019. And while Brooklyn and the Bronx dominated conversations, upstate New York made sure it was heard. Griselda's WWCD was grimy, uncompromising, and proudly anti-trend. Westside Gunn, Conway the Machine, and Benny the Butcher delivered pure street rap with raw beats and minimal compromise. After 2019, drill started to become more popular in the New York area, especially in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and in Harlem. Now, there have been many great flashes in New York, great singles, emerging artists. The spotlight briefly came back, but then it moved on. However, 2017 and 2019 were distinct because it wasn't based on a single sound, celebrity, or tactic. It didn't fall apart once the excitement subsided. Instead of fighting for dominance inside the city, artists expanded outwards. The chaos wasn't a weakness, it was an advantage. Young people were the driving force behind it. New York music spread more quickly than any other marketing budget could because the music was being played heavily in the clubs, parties, social media, and fashion events, and more. Importantly, this era didn't rely on moments, it relied on momentum. When one artist slowed down, another rose. When one sound peaked, another emerged. When mainstream attention drifted, the streets kept moving. New York didn't pause, and because it didn't pause, it couldn't be ignored. Now, as many of y'all may know, by the early 2000s, the early 2020s, the drill wave have gotten much more bigger, and everybody in the city, especially in the Bronx and Brooklyn, was hopping on the wave to making cult classics. Rappers like B Love, K Flock, Dougie B, Shy K, Use G's, Eat Baby, Sugar Hill Keem, and many more rappers were putting out songs that were just getting played everywhere. Now, unfortunately, Pop Smoke was tragically shot and killed and was taken from the world way too soon. Who knows where his career would have been if he didn't get killed. However, he did release Meet the Woo 2 and Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, both in 2020, and his last album, Faith, in 2021. Now, that concludes the video, so hopefully y'all enjoy.